Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart for coming tonight. It's a Tuesday night. There's a lot to do tonight. It's the night of the School of Music's Jubilate Deo concert. It's almost finals, but yet you guys took time out of your schedule to come see me, and I'm so honored. You care about me. You care about my craft, seeing what I do. And these past few weeks, they've prompted a lot of reflection about how I've grown because of this program. My composition education before coming here was exclusively classical. And so I thought I was just going to make archaic classical programs for academic institutions. But when I came to Liberty School of Music's film scoring program, I discovered the art of partnering music with moving pictures to elevate stories. I never realized the power of music when combined with the moving picture. And within film scoring, the picture actually influences the fluid form of the piece, which can be composed in any genre for any ensemble. And the music symbiotically aids the picture. Needless to say, I was obsessed. And my passion for this field was matched only by the rigor of the program here. I was thoroughly equipped as a film composer compositionally, with classes dedicated to the art and theory of composition, technologically equipping me in all of the technology programs in my field, semiotically and narratively as I learned the art of the appropriate marriage of music and visual drama, a particular passion of mine which serves as the content for my hopeful upcoming master's thesis. I was equipped economically, studying the business of the industry, and I was equipped with everything I needed to become a force to be reckoned with in the industry. This presentation serves as the culmination of 4 years of laborious work and academic rigor. Over my time here, I composed hundreds of individual pieces, provided music for short films, an animation pilot, an audio drama, commissioned pieces for commencement, and not nearly enough sleep. I have a lot of content to show you guys tonight. Here's how it's going to work. For each genre I have up here, I'm going to explain what you're about to see. Then we're going to play the clips that I provided music for. Then I'm going to share anecdotes about my process. And then we're going to open up the floor for any questions you guys may have. Let's start with our first genre, commercials. When you're scoring commercials, you're trying to persuade a buyer to purchase a product, scoring like a musical businessman rather than a musical storyteller or artist. We're going to listen today to a medley of 3 commercials that showcase my scoring ability for advertising, including Perfetto, a coffee ad by the DeLonghi Group, which stars Brad Pitt as he interacts with residents of the Italian countryside. We also have Nike Airmax 2017, a shoe commercial featuring lightning fast cuts, featuring a multitude of varying materials such as sand, rocks, paper, and more that form silhouettes of the Nike Air Max shoe. This one's particularly special because I scored it with only sounds that I myself recorded live, ensuring every material on screen was recorded and presented. And finally, we have Rolls-Royce Spectre, a luxury coupe that blends sophisticated elegance with raw power. Additionally, it's important that film composers diversify the revenue streams, so all of the sound effects, in addition to the music, was done by me as well. Here's a medley of my work in commercial advertising.
I have seen tomorrow and what comes next. I have come face to face with perfection. I gaze deep into the realms of a new era, feeling impossible elation, hearing silence in its loudest phase. In the unwritten pages of history, I have found my name. I have seen what no one else has ever seen. The future.
I want to take a little moment to talk a little bit about my process. So with each of these cues, I had a task that I needed to complete. For Perfetto, I was tasked with making authentic Italian music. So I researched the only way I knew how, consuming an absorbent amount of pasta. For Nike, like I mentioned before, I had to score it with only sounds that I myself recorded live. No sample libraries were used on this cue. To give some context, we as film composers often used pre-built libraries that companies have made, so when we play our piano, the sounds just come up. We can have a sampled violin, and we play a note on our keyboard, the violin plays. None of that was used here. I went on a rampage around Lynchburg and made sure that every single material was recorded. With Rolls-Royce, I was tasked with blending the sophisticated luxury with the raw power of the coupe, all underneath an EDM framework. I'm now going to open up the audience for any questions you have for me regarding advertising. Any questions at all? All right.
So how long did the Nike one take? Or which one took the longest?
That's a good question. I think in terms of the number of versions, Perfetto took the longest. Not because of the composition, but because of the mixing behind it. Perfetto is a very calm, reflective cue, and we wanted to emphasize the laid-back nature of the Italian countryside. And so the mix gradually went from pretty harsh, and these speakers would definitely show the harshness, to a much more calm, smooth, round sound. And so it was less iterations regarding my compositional process because most of that stayed the same throughout. But the mixing took, I think, the longest. And in terms of the amount of work put in, I would say Nike took the longest because I had to make sure every material was recorded. I made a giant 50-point list and I had to figure out, okay, where in Lynchburg are there sandbags? And so I would have to go to Home Depot and stomp on a sandbag while the Home Depot employee looked at me really weird, like, what's going on? What are you doing? I'm like, it's for a cue. And they're like, I don't know what that means. So I think those were the two that took the longest for me. Ari, I think you had a question in the back there.
Explain the strategy for adding motion to commercials and advertising, especially the last two, and how you balance that between musicality dynamics, but also panning techniques and other types of animation.
So within a commercial, like I said, you're always trying to score the product instead of the story. And so the product on these commercials, the product is moving in this. Nike, the shoe is doing things. The shoe is going down on the floor. The shoe is exploding with balloons. And so the momentum comes from accentuating what the picture's already doing. And so like with Rolls-Royce, for example, there's shots where the camera would move along the exterior of the car. And so I wanted, for example, with that, to mirror that motion going from left to right with panning techniques, but also to mirror that with pitch, mirror that with the dynamics of the sounds as well. And so we're kind of scoring like a skeuomorphism almost. We're trying to mirror what's going on within the picture itself with that motion there. So the motion's less I'm just picking the motion, and it's more the picture's telling me what motion I need to bring out of the product that I'm trying to make someone buy. Any other questions? Mr. Leggett.
I'm wondering if you ever struggle with making something simple enough to be understood, but wanting to be complex enough to satisfy your own desires. Is there a battle there?
I think as a default, I am a maximalist with composition. The Lord has blessed me with a lot of knowledge and a lot of resources. And so those two form a wrestle with what the picture needs. Because at the end of the day, it's not like a classical composition where the sky is the limit, where if you want to write a Beethoven symphony, that's the loudest and biggest thing you can. This medium is more, I need to make this the appropriate level that the picture needs. And there's something that I like to call the threshold of melodrama. Melodrama is the concept of overscoring something, and you get to a point where it's just overdone, where the music starts to take the audience out of the world that we've invested in. And so it's less about I've added too many instruments, and it's less, when I watch it, I now focus on the music instead of the world that I'm in, and that's when I need to back off. And so I try to go as maximally as I can to utilize the resources and the knowledge that God's given me, but I also know, okay, this takes me, the audience member, out of the world. And so I'm trying to make sure that the audience never gets taken out of the story world. Mr. Working.
Do you look at something like this, because it's a minute or whatever the length is, and look at a form in a macro way and say, I want to go from here to there, or you like take a motif and then develop it like that?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the cue. I think with advertising specifically, especially with the latter two, where there's a lot of motion and movement going on, I always start with the sound design elements that I need. If there's going to be some kind of motion, I need to make sure that motion's there first. So I have the skeleton outline of what the actual object is doing. And then from there, I usually listen without any music, and I just test tempos, just a starting tempo to figure out what feels right. The Rolls Royce, it seemed like a much more energetic cue, so I started with the more energetic tempo. Perfetto, it's a very, very laid back cue, so it's a smaller tempo. And so with that, I also try to make sure that the tempo stays constant throughout the arrangement, because that's also something that can take the audience out of the sound world, is that there's abrupt tempo changes. So I think it's a matter of figuring out what the tempo is. Once I have the tempo, I can figure out, okay, using this tempo and where the cue ends, I can figure out how many bars I have to work with, and then figure out my form from there. Perfetto, it was pretty easy to find a ternary form in there, where I could have an A section, a B section, an A section. And then with Nike and Rolls Royce, Nike was very triangular in the sense that it kept building up to that climax with the logo. And Rolls Royce was pretty through composed in the sense that it ebbed and flowed with what the Rolls Royce coupe was actually doing. So it varies, but it's a combination of figuring out what the tempo should be, and then figuring out how many bars I have from there. And then from there, having that skeleton, figure out melodic, harmonic, what works in that world. So. Any other questions? Yes?
Simplistic question, Nathan, but did you pick these, or did your professor give them to you to do, or how did that come about?
Professor C is very kind to me in that he lets me pick a lot of my own cues. There's some, which we have some of those in the presentation, where he gently hints, like, Nathan, this would really push you, so I think you should try this one. And there's one particular that I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. This is not for me. And then I ended up doing it, and it became one of my favorite cues of the presentation. So it starts off with me picking, and then him kind of assessing, okay, I think you've already done, a car commercial or something. Let's try to push you in this direction to make you as varied of a composer as you can be. But mostly it's me kind of giving my initial ideas. Preston.
These advertisements have music before you make music for them?
They do. They do.
Beforehand?
they have what's called temporary music, and that will become a very important part of the latter half of the presentation. It's temporary music that's placed. I listen to this, so I listen to the Nike Airmax, and I'm listening to what did the original composer do. Now, sometimes I do that. I listen to what they've done to kind of get a feel. Other times, I don't listen to it, and I try to just have an original enough perspective on it, because sometimes when I listen to the temp music, it might taint my perspective. But oftentimes, the answer to this, there is music for almost all these cues. There's a few cues later on that don't have music at all. But generally, these have been scored by other people. And generally, I think it's good practice to listen to what the original composer did. All right, so we're going to move on to our next genre, okay? This is a TV theme. So themes should be hooky, catchy, immediately recognizable, and reinforcing the sonic identity of a project. So to demonstrate, I chose a theme from Suits, a legal drama television series that follows college dropout Mike Ross. Through his unique photographic memory, he ends up working with Harvey Spectre, one of the best lawyers in New York City. Here's Suits. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to any questions you guys have about my theme for Suits. Dr. Schmall.
The original was a song,
Yes.
laid back kind of bluesy song. What made you decide to go to this more kind of urban jazz, fast-paced feel, as opposed to creating more of a bluesy kind of feel?
So there's two factors that influenced my decision to score in this genre. The first thing was tempo related. So for the tempo, I saw the differing camera cuts and the diffusion of the graphics and the busyness of New York City. And so the original temp music is this very dun, 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 this bluesy song. And I was like, it fits very, very well. But when I look at New York City, and I took a good couple of hours just rewatching this 30-second clip over and over and over again to figure out, what is this world that I want to accentuate through music? I saw all this busyness, and so I wanted to accentuate that through a faster paced rhythm. Now, genre-wise, when I think of New York City, and this is a purely subjective thing, I think of Greenwich Village, I think of the Village Vanguard, I think of the jazz scene there. And so when I think of New York City, I heard 90s jazz rock fusion. And so this is one of those things where I love thematic writing because it gives you, the composer, a chance to really speak for yourself. There's no story world, there's no picture, you really get to reinforce that sonic identity. And so I was able to take that liberty to make it into a completely different genre. Anything else? All right, let's move on. Animations. This one's going to be a fun one. So, animations. They involve closely following the on-screen action and mimicking character movement with light and quirky instrumentation. We're going to listen through a medley of 3 animations that showcase my scoring ability, like Gummy Bear. Now, this is the cue that I was like, there's no way I'm going to score this. I watched this and I'm like, please, I'm in my bachelor's degree. I'm in college. This is a show for 6-year-olds. I'm not going to score this. But I did. And this is an animation that stars the titular Gummy Bear and his friends as they experience adventures and learn life lessons about friendship. This cue is unique, just to kind of preface it. It has an original vocal song in it that was sung by me, as well as an original score. Now, Wallace and Gromit, it's a 2005 animation comedy. It follows the titular characters trying to search for a mysterious creature. Now, this one is also special. I already completed this cue to some extent, but I decided I'm going to erase the whole thing and rescore the entire thing in a day. So everything you heard was me rescoring this in a day from the very first note to the final mix. And then, of course, there's Agent 327. It's a Blender short film that centers around the titular Agent 327 as he investigates mysterious occurrences at a local barbershop. Here's a medley of my scoring 3 animations.
Welcome to the Gummy Bear Show.
Well, would you look at that?
At what?
That.
I don't mean to be difficult, Gummy, but you're pointing, well, up to the sky at about 86 gajillion stars.
Could you narrow it down a little? The moon.
Ah, the moon.
Yeah, it sure is pretty.
Well,
good night, Gummy. The moon. I'll bet it would be great to go there, wouldn't it? As a matter of fact, I think I will.
Oh, you don't think he might actually try, do you?
Nah, I'm sure he'll have forgotten all about it in the morning. This getting to the moon might be a bit tougher than I first thought. Okay, on the plus side, there's nothing but space between here and the moon. On the not-so-plus side, there sure is a heck of a lot of that space to cross. But fortunately, I've got a plan. It may not be all fancy schmancy, but it'll take me in the right direction. Namely, up! Next stop, the moon! Correction. Next stop, the ceiling. Okay, plan B time.
You look a little nervous, sweetie.
I guess I am, Granny Peters. Today's the day I'm going to try for the first time to Kung Fu chop 5 boards. I've been practicing and working up to it for as long as I can remember, and I really want to succeed.
I'm sure you'll give it your very best. Oh, time to walk my pet tarantula. Good luck, sweet pea.
Look, Gummy, are you really sure this is a good idea?
Sure, I'm sure, Harry. Come on. They say travel's a great learning experience. So a brain like you can't be against learning, right?
Well, no, of course not. But are you sure the goldfish wants to go along too?
I can't say yes for absolute certain. But when I needed to borrow his gold for my astro helmet, I couldn't think of anywhere else to put him. And now that you mention it, maybe I ought to make other arrangements, since I don't think I can hold my breath all the way to the moon. Looks like it's plan C time.
I'm gonna go check on Carla and see how her practice for that big Kung Fu board-breaking test is coming. She's going for 5 today.
Wish her luck for me. And tell her I promise I'll send her a postcard from the moon.
I've never tried this many boards before, Harry.
Just give it your best shot, Carla. I know you can do it.
I don't know why, but something's just wrong today. I can't focus.
I'm okay.
I just can't do this alone. Hang on a sec. That's it. I've just figured out why I'm having so much trouble breaking those 5 boards.
Why?
Who's been with me every single time before? When I set out to break 1, 2, 3, and then 4 boards. You, me, and Gummy. I guess that gave me more courage than I'd realized.
Then hey, let's go get him and drag our little green pal back over here.
No way. That isn't how Gummy had been here for me in the past, because he'd been forced to. If Gummy's going to be here, it has to be because he wants to be.
On the plus side, if he makes it to the moon, he did promise to send you a postcard.
I see the moon and it looks so nice. Hanging there, it shines bright. I wanna have fun, I want it soon. Wanna go to the moon. Fly me to the moon. Oh, I wanna fly up into the sky. Fly me to the moon. See how it glows. Oh, I want to go. Gotta find a way. Got to leave today. I won't stop till I'm on it. I'm ready to go. Floating higher. Oh, I wanna go. Wanna go. Oh, I wanna go.
Lan, is there a letter that comes after Z? Time?
If you don't mind my asking, why do you want to go to the moon, Gummy?
So I can have fun and exciting adventures and maybe meet some friends and share some, wild and crazy.
What's wrong?
It just dawned on me. Why should I go 67,980 gajillion miles away when I have all that with Kalahari and you right here? Oh man, I hope I'm not too late to see Kala break those 5 boards. Well, would you look at that?
And what?
That! The moon! It took me a while to realize it. But you know, the moon actually looks better from down here, where you can share the cool view with friends.
So, you're not planning to go there anymore?
Well, not tonight anyway.
thieving monster.
This is 327. I'm going in.
Good luck, Agent.
Hello, I was just admiring the art.
Haircut?
Please. Such a lovely place you've got here. Is it usually this, empty? Just a trim, please. Boris?
Agent 327.
Looks like we found our next recruit. Doctor, carry on with the procedure. We have to make room for Agent 327.
I want to talk a little bit about my process with these. Each one had a very distinct composition process. So starting with Gummy Bear, I, against my maximalist tendencies, tried to score it as simply as possible to appeal to the childlike demographic. I composed a set number of themes that represented various moods and characters and pasted them in the cue whenever a moment would occur. Of course, the elephant in the room is the original song. It features my own voice using advanced Logic recording techniques to make my voice sound like a gummy bear. Film scoring is a very serious business, as you know. With Wallace and Gromit, I had to conform to various changes in mood, from mysterious to tense to heroic, but yet still maintain a consistent instrumental cohesion. With Agent 327, I wanted to pay homage to as many classic spy genre scores as I could. John Barry's James Bond, Michael Giacchino's The Incredibles, so on and so forth. Any questions? Kara.
What is your favorite crunchy chord from 327.
From 3 to, oh, okay. I did some polychordal stuff in there, maybe. That's, okay, so it's a tie between a few of them. The epitome of that score harmonically for me is the G minor major 9, of course, classic spy. I mean, you put that in there, okay, we're solving a mystery or something. So that one's one of them. I also used a lot of chords derived from the octatonic scale, a lot of stuff in the battle scenes. That was a lot of fun, having some ostinati in the lower regions of the orchestra, while the middle regions played some harmonic ideas there. I think I would have to go, the winner would be the octatonic scale stuff. You can't go wrong with octatonic, and there's just so many great moves on there that keeps the audience intrigued. Any other questions? Yeah?
Yeah, with the spy movie, you said I heard like a lot of stuff that made remind me of like other spy movies.
Mm-hmm.
Which, out of all those movies that you said, like
Yep.
Incredible,
Mm-hmm.
all the other ones, which one do you think you were most influenced?
I'm so glad you asked that question. Yes, I'm so glad you asked that question. Okay, so if you guys know me, my favorite score of all time is Michael Giacchino's The Incredible score. It is by far my favorite, and I'm not going to explain how, but I own the actual score, so I've studied through it over and over and over again. So a lot of my creativity comes from analyzing what Giacchino did with the orchestra, the harmonic moves he did, which is just, the best way to learn besides the classes here. Just pick a score, Williams, Giacchino, any of them, and just study what they do. And then you can start to make different correlations between the harmonic languages of Williams and Giacchino, and especially with his writing for big band with the orchestra, I really dove deep into that score to figure out how he melded the two. So bar none, The Incredibles for that one. Anything else? All right.
Having heard your original Wallace and Gromit, what was your take on your original, and what was your thought process of what needed to be changed, why, what were your new objectives?
Yes. So I'm going to tell you a story to answer this question. So I submitted this cue, and so Professor C gave me some Canvas comments, and he said, listen to John Debney's Liar, Liar soundtrack. And I said, okay, I will. I listened to that soundtrack, I believe 14 times in one day. And so it was the number one, I kid you not, it's the number one album on my Spotify Wrapped that year. I listened to that score so much. And so what I did with that score is, as I listened to it, I found some Linardi principles for the way the orchestra should breathe like a living organism. Some things that really helped was, my original score was very unison driven. So the ostinatos were very bum, 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 bum. Everybody moving in homorhythm. And what I discovered was, with Liar Liar specifically, is there's always something that's sustaining. There's always one instrument in there that's sustaining. Even when everything else is staccato, there's always some element there. And so really studying the orchestration and the melodic ideas, the modal ideas that Debney used really helped inform what I should change. And so with those changes, I was like, there's no way it's gonna, none of this stuff is gonna work. So I was like, okay, keep the logic session, always keep your logic sessions, never delete them, you can always use them for later. But I did a completely new logic session. I was like, let's just see what happens. And so using my principles, I just scored it, and this came out, so within a day. But I think listening to that soundtrack and figuring out what the master did in a very similar genre, using that quirky and funny orchestration style helped a lot. Anything else? All right, so very sharp turn from the very lively, joyful environment of animations. We're gonna watch a thriller movie, you guys, okay? So, like I said, within commercials, you're scoring like a businessman. You're trying to sell a product. But with movie scenes, you are a storyteller, and you're trying to keep audiences invested in that story world. So to demonstrate music telling a film story, I present Zodiac. So It's a 2007 crime thriller film. It's directed by David Fincher. It surrounds the manhunt surrounding the elusive Zodiac killer who terrorized San Francisco in the 60s and 70s. So the film follows Robert Graysmith as he tries to track down the killer's identity. Now, this scene is in the middle of the film, and if you guys haven't watched it, it's important that I give you guys some necessary context. So Graysmith thinks he has a lead on a killer. His lead is a former theater projectionist who hid evidence in movie canisters, and the killer's handwriting matches his suspects. Now, these posters and canisters were moved to the home of Bob Vaughn, an affiliate of the suspect. This scene starts as Bob Vaughn, to Graysmith's terror, reveals that the handwriting is not the suspect's, but Vaughn's himself. Let's listen to Zodiac.
Mr. Graysmith, I do the posters myself. That's my handwriting.
I won't take any more of your time.
Why don't I just go and find out when we play that film?
But that's all right.
It's not a problem. They're just down in the basement.
Not many people have basements in California.
I do. Come in, Mr. Graysmith. The original Studio One sheets I always kept for myself. Cheapo knockoffs like you brought today, I end up tossing into the back alley.
You live alone?
Most Dangerous Game ran in May '69. So that would be about 9 weeks before the first Zodiac glitter, correct?
Yeah.
Do you think you saw the film in our theater and was inspired?
Are you sure there's nobody else in the house?
Would you like to go upstairs and check?
No. Thank you. Thanks for everything.
You're welcome.
It's locked. Thank you.
Night, Mr. Graysmith.
Spooky. Now this cue uses a very interesting compositional element. Silence. In suspense films like this, silence says more than music ever could. So I approach this scene with silence taking the forefront, the melody of the cue, if you will. And I only pressed my add creepiness button when it was absolutely necessary. I'll open up the floor to questions.
What instrumentation were you using with like the creepy sounds?
So,
What are the sounds? Were you using like actual materials and like more software?
are we talking about the techniques or the sound libraries?
Either or.
Okay, so I'll go with the techniques first. the instrumentation, besides a bunch of sound design elements, including a radiator from my grandmother's basement, the instrumentation is just a string quartet. I listened to the original David Shire score a lot, and so he uses strings in a very melancholy and creepy way. And so I really wanted to have that be the forefront of the instrumentation. As far as techniques go, there's a lot of 20th century techniques in there. A lot of col legno battuto, which is a technique of flipping the bow and beating it and stuff. A lot of rosinless bowing techniques as well. Let's see, what else is there? A lot of tremolo, of course. You can't go wrong with tremolo. And basically just obliterating the violin in any way possible, using all sorts of sol ponticello, sol tasto, all those things. But the goal is to make sounds that people haven't heard. And so, you know, if you have just a normal string sound, that's kind of comforting for people in a scene like this. They know what a string is. They know what a violin is. And if I added anything melodic, it would make them feel at home. And like Robert Graysmith, I don't want you guys to feel like you're at home. I want you guys to feel like you don't know what Bob Vaughan's going to do next. And so I use a lot of those type of techniques. Libraries, I mean, there's a myriad of them. A lot of Spitfire libraries have some really good 20th century techniques, orchestral tools, cinematic studio strings, basically all the string libraries possible to form those unique textures, and some processing as well, because I think it's necessary to not just take the samples as they are, but add a little bit of extra uniqueness to them that differentiates yourself as a composer. Anything else? Kara.
So I also some other presentations as well, but with these alias word libraries, they're really great and really effective, but sometimes they don't tell you what techniques to use, which is fun when you're just like scoring something for sound, but when you have to put together your score to present, what is your process just listening to that and creating a full score orchestration of the randomness that you're doing?
So regarding aleatoric techniques, I've studied the scores from a lot of 20th century music, and so I'm kind of aware of what sounds correlate with what things in notation. In the score itself, I used aleatoric boxes, which basically, and you have to custom make them in Dwarka, which was a lot of fun to kind of draw them out and make them. But basically, I wrote random pitches with X note heads, and then I wrote inside of the aleatoric box the technique that they should use. And it's up to the performer. Aleatoric literally means chance music. So the point is not to notate everything that they're supposed to do, but say, here's your box, here's your parameters, go crazy, do whatever you want. And so, you know, I know what col legno battuto looks like, I know what sol ponticello looks like, all those different things, and what it should look like for a string player. And so just putting that in there and just saying, okay, Mr. String Player, you're really kind of a co-composer here with me. Make something that, you know, sounds like this parameter, creepiness, for example, in this cue, and then go crazy, you know, do that kind of thing. So I used aleatoric boxes a lot, but then wrote the technique on the top. Any other questions? All right, now, trailers. With trailers, you're trying to get audiences in theater seats. You're trying to tell them that this story is worth investing your time and your money in, and you want to make them want to see it. So to demonstrate this, I chose Tenet, which emphasizes the concept of time reversal as an unnamed protagonist seeks to prevent the onset of World War II. Here's the Tenet trailer.
All I have for you is a word. Tenet. It'll open the right doors, some of the wrong ones too. Use it carefully.
To do what I do, I need some idea of the threat we face.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
I'm not saying Armageddon here.
No. Something worse.
I gather you have an interest in a certain Russian national.
Why'd you bring me in?
You really want to know? He can communicate with the future.
Time travel.
No. Inversion.
Aim it and pull the trigger. You're not shooting the bullet, you're catching it.
Whoa. Well, I've seen too much. Well, we'll try and keep up.
Your duty transcends national interests. This is about survival.
Seems bold.
Bold, I'm fine with. I thought you were going to say nuts.
This is where our worlds collide.
How would you like to die?
Old.
You chose the wrong profession.
What happened here?
Hasn't happened yet.
There are people in the future who need us. We need a tenant.
We need to save them here and now.
This reversing the flow of time. Doesn't us being here now mean it never happened? You want to crash a plane?
But not from the air. That was so dramatic.
Well, how big a plane?
That part is a little dramatic.
So a little bit about trailers. Trailers are rhythmic and they're formulaic. They start low and brooding and they build up to a climax. Another key concept with trailer writing are using impacts, colloquially referred to as boomers, and tension is built through the use of risers, or production sounds that feature a rapidly escalating pitch. And in this cue, I try to use as many of those as I could. I'll now open up the floor for any questions you guys have. All right.
First of all, I really appreciate how you not only captured the feeling of a trailer, but reflected what the story is about. There's too many trailers that are just trying to get the audience excited and don't depict the director's vision or creativity. You did that very well. Piggybacking off of that, what were some unique sound design / composition traits that you used to reflect that? I heard some reversal techniques in there. Can you explain some more things?
Yeah, so I also want to preface, I didn't say this before, but most of, if not all the sound design is done by me as well. So all the shooting, the car crashes. So as is the recommended custom for composers, I put that stuff in first, lay it out, make sure that that stuff's there, because that's often going to inform what you end up composing, because there's going to be some high frequency information in a car crash that's not going to make you want to score something in the violins or the flutes or something, for example. And so I did that, and then I also know that time reversal, very big thing. Time in general is a key aspect of all of Nolan's films. And so knowing this hypothetical scenario of working with Christopher Nolan, I wanted to emphasize that time element. And so, like you said, I used a lot of reversed sounds, a lot of ticking clock elements, especially in the beginning. I came with a bold vision starting out. I'm like, I'm going to score this with all reversed sounds. That didn't work out at all. But I had a compromise. I said, I'm going to try to include as many of those things as I could on those key moments. And so all of the risers and boomers are also reversed as well to kind of give this sucking feeling into one of your impacts with the use of boomers. All right, one last genre for you guys. For my next film, I want to do one last animation scene from the DreamWorks movie How to Train Your Dragon. Now, the final product that you're going to hear is my original rescoring of the scene with Astrid and Hiccup flying with Toothless. It's iconic. But before we watch, I want to talk a little bit more in depth about my process. Now, as composers, we need to be fully prepared for any situation that a director throws at us. Temp music is an example. Now, I touched on this a little bit at the beginning of the presentation, but temp music is temporary music that's placed while post-production editing is taking place on a film. It gives a rhythm and a mood to a movie scene before the composer, who's usually one of the last people to enter the production, comes on board. The problem is directors fall in love with this temporary music, and composers have to compose something exactly like it. You, the composer, will only have the audio file. It's up to you to make a masterpiece that makes the director happy. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is you directly copy as much of the original as you can. You take the original strings, for example, and replicate them as close as you can. But unfortunately, this results in a bad and puny representation of the original. There's a better option, though. As we train as film composers, it's imperative that we learn how other composers score. But it's not just about exactly copying what a composer did in the strings, for example, and then changing a few things so that we don't get sued or something. There's a better option. We take the original temporary audio, we transcribe it and analyze it, we reduce it to its bare essentials, we recompose it at the piano, reorchestrate it, and then make it sound broadcast ready. And that's exactly what I did with this cue. I'm going to go through all of my steps. Step 1, transcription and analysis. This is you figuring out what makes this cue tick. What's the melody? What's the harmony? What's the rhythm? What's the texture? Is the orchestra homophonic, homorhythmic? This is exactly what I did with the John Debney Liar Liar score. I'm trying to figure out what makes this cue so unique and how can I apply that. Now that we have this cue in our minds, step 2 comes into play. Now we're going to reduce all of the information that John Powell was giving us. This is the point of this is to reduce it to a playable piano score. We have to simplify all of these musical elements so that we can actually play it and get the score under our fingers. We have to make choices here because we can't choose everything that John Powell did and we only have 10 fingers. You have to make deliberate choices about what parts to include. Here's a bit of my piano reduction of Romantic Flight. This is not about making a professional looking score. It's about getting the music under your fingers. So I wanted to show a rough handwritten music sketch just to prove it's not about that. It's about playing it. Now, step 3. This is, I know what a lot of you guys are thinking. You're probably thinking, this is a lot of analysis. Where do I actually get to hear the music? Where do I get to compose the music? This is the step where you actually get to compose. You actually get to keep all the original compositional intent. And the beauty about film music is that everybody has a unique voice. You need to recognize other people's voices in order to have your own voice. And this is an opportunity for you, the composer, to actually speak with your own voice. You can take many versions of your various sections of the music, like your intro, your theme 1, and then compile the best ones together to make your theme. Here's my recomposition of Romantic Flight, now titled Romance in the Air. All right, so then you take your piano sketch and you expand it out now for the full orchestra using your idiomatic and intimate orchestra knowledge in referencing the original score. And one last step. We want people to enjoy hearing this. So now we have to make it broadcast ready. The goal here is to balance both quality sound and efficient deliverable time so that the director is fully happy with what you composed for the score and signs off on it. There's so many options in today's world to pick. For a time and cost-efficient option, StaffPad is amazing with free Muse sounds. For a professional and quality sound option, Logic Pro 11 or Vienna Ensemble Pro 7 with third-party VSTs and live players is the preferred option for the modern media composer. Now, with both options, the easiest way is to export XML files from your score and import them in either StaffPad or Logic, respectively. I want to go through each option to kind of show you guys what we're dealing with here. The first option is StaffPad. Now, keep in mind for this, I just imported the file. There's no editing to the file, there's no mixing to the file, and it took me about 5 minutes. Let's listen to what 5 minutes of work sounds like. Sounds okay, but I think we can do a little bit better than that. I present Logic Pro. This is the preferred option for the modern media composer. I use many of my 8 terabytes of sample libraries, and like Christian Henson and many composers at Monash, I hired a session player to bring humanistic life to the cue. I hired the fantastic Elizabeth Kilman, a fellow film composer, to play the solo violin part. She's not here right now. She's doing things for the Jubilate Deo concert, but let's just give a round of applause just for her, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear the final mock-up in context.
He's amazing.
Any questions from the audience? There's no questions. I have one last thing to say. Now, you've heard a lot of music just now, a lot of music that I'm proud of. However, I want to take a moment to give all the glory, all the praise, all the honor to God for allowing me to be a vessel through which music can flow. Only through Him can I create. Only through Him. I've said this for years. I write terrible music apart from God. But when I get on my knees to compose a piece and I surrender it to God, I write beautiful things that I can't take credit for because God gave me the melodies, the harmonies, the rhythms. And my prayer tonight was through the storytelling found in the medium of music that God was glorified. And I want to thank you all for coming out to celebrate this offering of music to God with me, which was ultimately the goal. It's all for Him. It's all an offering. Every recital at this wonderful school of music is an offering to the Lord Almighty. And I want to thank you for coming to mind. God bless you. You're dismissed. Ha ha ha.